G'day, Andrew Hawks here, author of Rivers of Gold, How to Create Multiple Income Streams. And I've been asked a few really key questions, and the first one is, what would I say to a younger version of myself? I would say this: there is a massive shift in consciousness that's happening right now around the planet. There's massive change that's occurring, and all your life, even from a young boy, you realize that there was something innate inside you that was bigger than you are. You weren't quite sure what that was. In fact, it took you till you're about 20, 28, 29, 30, even 32 in order to really start to grasp what it was about that was so special about you. You didn't think there was anything special about you to start with because everyone at school told you, you're not good at sport, you're not good at this, you're not good at that. Now let me tell you, with the benefit of hindsight, you were amazing at sport. You made a national team. Not many people can chalk that off. So you really listened to a lot of what other people had said when really you should have listened to what was in here. That's the key. And I've learnt that later in life. And if I could go back and tell myself this now, it would be, if you went inside and asked yourself the question, you'll get the answer that you need. Everything that you need is right within. So what would I tell a younger version of myself? There's massive shift happening. And you're a very big part of that shift. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that you have the power to motivate people, to inspire people, and to make massive things happen. Just believe in yourself. If only I had the belief in myself that I'm giving to you now, back when I was 18. Things might be a little bit different right now. What have I learnt about my journey that could positively affect my life? Well, simple. Always take things with a grain of salt. Take people at their word, that's fine. No problem with that. But I've found that partnerships end when somebody disagrees. So as good of friends as you may well be, as it might be your brother, it might be your sister, it might be your mother, father, whatever. It might have been your best friend from school, it might have been your best friend from a job you were at and you went into business together, whatever. The friendship is only as strong as the agreement that you've actually got written down on paper. Because if you don't have it written on paper, you leave yourself open for all sorts of things. So a handshake's great, but a paper's a little bit better. And I'm all for gentleman agreements. I'm all for saying, yep, well, let's put it on a handshake. But look, let's just write out just a couple of things of what we both agree to, so we've got it in paper. We've got it in writing. That's covering your backside, and it's also helping your other person, helping them to stay accountable to themselves, because you might have impeccable integrity, but somebody else might not. Somebody else might not have the same integrity that you have. So what have I learnt that would positively inspire my life? That's it. Always get things in writing. Always trust yourself. Because trusting in yourself above all else is the most important thing, because you're the only one that's going to be there when you're down and out. Sure, you might have friends that come around and say, hey, is there anything I can do? But you're the only one that's going to be able to help yourself out of that rut. Believe me, I've been there. I was sexually abused when I was 9 years old. I didn't let anyone know about that until I was about 32, 33. And I did not realize how much that affected my life until I actually brought it out to the open and said, yeah, this is what happened to me. It controlled me. And I could have made a decision when I was younger that it would have taken me down a totally different path. What have I learned about life that could positively change my outcome? Well, I've learned that I'm the master of the direction that I go, and how I control this and what I allow into this directly manifests into what happens out here. Now, I'll give you a story. I literally thought myself into bankruptcy. That is, I thought about how to avoid bankruptcy so much that I wound up bankrupt. I'm sure there's a few people that can relate to that and say the same thing, particularly in today's day and age and the economic times that we're going through. But the fact of the matter is, if you ask really good questions and continue to follow the rabbit down the hole of the question that you're asking, you're going to get an answer so profound that everything else is superfluous. It doesn't really matter, because you're going to get absolute clarity. So if I could take one bit of advice and apply it to my life 10, 15 years ago, it would be ask really good questions. And question everything. And when I say question everything, I mean everything. Question the laws. Are they legal in and of themselves? Question the government. Are they acting legally in your best interests? Question everything. Are the banks working in your favour? Or is there some bigger purpose What is happening. Make it your business to know what's going on, because if you're ill-informed or if you're not informed at all, then you're going to be really, really easy to manipulate. So if you can find out for yourself, if you can ask better questions and question everything, then you're going to position yourself so much better to be able to take advantage of any opportunity that comes your way. And literally, opportunity knocks every day. Most people miss it because they're not looking for it, or they don't understand that it's opportunity. Thomas Edison said that most people miss opportunity because it's quite often dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a lot simpler than that as well. So always question everything, and always ask yourself the deep questions that you want. I'll tell you a little secret. If you want to get a really, really, really clear answer, and you don't really want to think about it too much, because the thing with asking yourself a really good question is sometimes our own logic gets in the way and says, oh, but it could be this. We want to take our own logic and our own ego out of the equation. So a real good way to get a clear answer, now it takes about 12 hours, a real good way to get a clear answer to a good question is to ask yourself a really good question right before you go to sleep. Say, what was I put here for? Or what is the meaning of life? Okay, that's really, really cliche. But ask yourself a really good question as you go to sleep. Because that does something back here in your subconscious mind. It starts your brain working. And while you're sleeping and getting 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours, whatever it is that you need, there's a question that's formulating. And it might not come to you as soon as you wake up in the morning, but it will come to you throughout the day. And when it comes to you, you're going to go, I get it. And it's going to be such a profound moment that you're going to remember it for a very, very long time. Whatever you can, ask yourself questions. That's the real big one. But if you can get silent every day for at least 10 or 15 minutes, I say at least 10 or 15 minutes, just sit in quiet contemplation. You can try and get to a place of no thought, and if you do that, if you're lucky enough to do that, you're going to experience things that not many people on this earth get to experience. And as I said earlier, that is changing because there's a massive shift in consciousness happening, and you can be a big part of that. How would my life be better if I'd been given this advice years ago? Well, let me see. I mentioned that I thought myself into bankruptcy. If I'd been given this advice years ago, I probably would have thought more on the positive than the negative. I wouldn't have thought how to avoid bankruptcy because that led me to it. I would have thought, how can I be prosperous, whatever, fill in the blank. But my focus wouldn't have been on bankruptcy, it would have been on prosperity. And just by doing that, just by making that little shift, it may seem very, very, very whimsical, if you like, or very unimportant. By making that little shift, I could have made a massive difference in my life. So if I'd been given this advice years ago and actually shown how to put it into practice, then where I'm sitting today might be a totally different story. I might not have lost millions of dollars worth of cash and assets. I might not have had to move to Australia and start from scratch and go from zero. I literally moved to Australia 5 years ago with the shirt on my back, okay, and started from scratch. I now have a family of 3 children. I run my own business, quite a successful business, and of course, I write books. So if I'd have been given that advice, and I guess some of the stuff that's in that book, in my books, are of my journey, so I'm grateful for that. But if I'd been given the advice years ago, I may have been writing different books on different outcomes of things that have happened in my life. So that's what would happen if I was given the advice 18 years ago. I would have focused on a different outcome. As opposed to focusing on what I didn't want, I would have focused on what I did want, because the mind does not negate negatives. So if I say I don't want to get into bankruptcy, all my mind sees is I want bankruptcy. Do you follow? So it's really important to get that right, and it's just a little simple thing of linguistics, a little way in the way that you use your language, particularly with yourself, particularly with the self-talk, the dialogue that goes on up in here is more important than any other dialogue. So if you can control the chatter that goes up there with only positive stuff, only positive things are going to manifest out here in the real world. That is the information I really wish that I'd had 18 months ago, because it's so true. What you get, you focus on. And it shows up every time. You always get what you ask for. It just doesn't always come in the package you expect or the way you expect it to. give you an example. A friend of mine said, "Look, I don't want to cut such and such's hair anymore. It just really bugs me. I don't want to have to do that anymore." That person died. She got what she asked for. She didn't have to cut the hair anymore because the person of hair who she didn't want to cut, that person died. That person passed on. You might go, "Oh yeah, but that's totally non-related." It doesn't matter. She put it out there that that's what she wanted. She didn't want to cut that person's hair anymore. She never had to cut that person's hair again, ever. That's a bit extreme, but you get the point. You always get what you ask for. It just doesn't always come in the package you expect.